22.
Woo!
Episode 22.
I don't know about you.
This is where we're at.
I'm feeling 22.
I'm trying to think of a rhyme now. I didn't know you were going to go that route.
Sorry, dude. I'm sorry.
Well, welcome, everyone. My name is Jordan. I'm joined by...
Jordan's
I'm joined by
best friend, Ethan.
I'm joined by him.
No.
I'm going to call you him this episode.
No, you're him.
Yeah, I got to come back at it now. You know, I can't let that go from last week. You know?
No.
Yeah.
I'll never be him.
Okay. All right.
I wish at this moment I could cut in some videos because there's all sorts of great memes and jokes about not being him and stuff.
Okay. Well, I'll call you Ethan for today then. Better?
Okay, thank you.
Sound good?
And I'll
just for today, though.
Just today?
Yeah.
So, okay.
I'll be nice.
Yeah. Well,
okay.
You better pick up and start calling me him after this, okay?
It sounds good. We're joining you here again today. This is going to be a mini episode, and we're awesome at mini episodes.
Dude, we keep it tight.
We
baby.
rock mini episodes,
yeah.
right? So I remember the last time we did a mini episode, like it was mini.
It was like so mini, like talking like 5 minutes shorter than the average episode.
Yeah, actually, I think actually might have been one of our longer episodes we've ever done, right at the time. So we're gonna keep this one mini today. We're just gonna share a few things, throw a few thoughts out there at you. We're doubling up this week just because of the week it is, right?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna jump right into it. Sound good?
Get it, girl.
We are heading into Remembrance Day. And so Remembrance Day is coming up November 11th on Monday. And Remembrance Day, like when you were growing up, was this like a thing that you in school you went for assemblies for and different things like that?
Big time, yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's still a thing, I'm pretty sure, right?
Couldn't tell you.
I'm pretty sure it is, yeah. I'm pretty sure my daughters go to one, yeah.
Like school's off on the 11th, obviously.
Yeah, they do it usually on like the whatever day before they can. So this weekend's interesting because it's on a Monday. So I'm sure on the Thursday they'll do their service.
Do they have Friday off?
Yeah, schools are getting like a little deal this time.
4-day weekends is more normal for schools now.
They're doubling up. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
I do too.
I think it's good for kids.
Yeah, I think so too.
Not so great for every parent necessarily, but
no,
if workplaces could catch up with it,
teachers would be good for too. I think, right? You might as well get a little break whenever you can.
Yep.
But Remembrance Day is happening, and there's services happening around the area here. I know Saskatoon has like one of the biggest ones in the country, and it happens at Saskatoon Center.
Biggest one in the country?
One of the biggest ones in the country. Like, look this up later.
Seriously,
I'm not lying. It's been quite known for that across the country. So, and I've gone to it a couple of times, and it is very full, very meaningful, a good time of remembrance, and a lot of respect and just honor, which is due at these things for sure, right?
It is very full. It's a very full building.
The towns in the area now are doing their own. Like I think Martinsville, Warman, and different towns are kind of holding their own.
Where would they hold them?
Just in their arenas, their local arenas. So, and I think those are gaining a little bit more popularity and whatnot. So, but yeah, that's happening this week. And, just want to say, honor to all those vets and whatnot and people who went before us and fought for our freedoms. And it's good to remember. So I hope you find yourself in that place this upcoming week. I find it interesting because Remembrance Day seems to be that day where obviously we have it, and at 11 we want to have our moment of silence and we want to remember lest we forget. There's always this connection with Remembrance Day and Christmas. Have you heard these arguments before?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, where like a lot of people, like if you have anything Christmas before Remembrance Day,
they're upset.
Yeah. But then like, I know for me, like Remembrance Day was always a kind of not a convenient day, but it was a day off that I had with my wife, right?
Yeah.
So, and I would often go to the service in the morning,
and
then sometime in the evening, put up some of the Christmas stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just because it was kind of, it seemed like the right time. And I think it is a good segue in that sense, like, up until then, kind of the season can sort of start, right?
Yep.
But like I'm already seeing Christmas stuff up everywhere. Like there's a tree down the street from me already up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow,
right in the front window at night. Like
before Halloween's pretty intense in my mind.
I find that too. Yeah.
But I also recently heard of somebody who put up their family Christmas tree just because people were around on a weekend.
Like okay.
So they're like, let's put it up while we're together.
And that's fair.
Yeah. It is interesting.
Do you like trees?
I love trees.
Do you look forward to putting your tree up?
Yes, we love doing it. And we have garland draped around our house and stuff when it comes. So we also kind of do it after Remembrance Day or on Remembrance Day. But we've done it before as well. And somebody heard about that one time and kind of came at me a little bit.
Okay.
And I remember thinking to myself a little bit, like, I didn't get into a debate with this person. That's not something I'm trying to do. You know what I mean? But I remember being like, well, like, aren't we, isn't this like part of celebrating the lives that we get to live? Is that we're allowed to enjoy the bright and festive things of life, and we can still treat Remembrance Day with solemnity. But,
and you can, and I think you could still do both personally. Right? Yeah. Like, I understand why people, because we don't want Remembrance Day to become something that we just forget, obviously, right? The whole point of it is to remember, right?
Remembrance,
but the idea is, I can understand why some people like are really strong on protecting that, and I respect that, and I get that. Yeah. But also, I could have a Christmas song on, but still really remember Remembrance Day too. Yeah. Right.
Well, there's also been this recent movement where a lot of people, younger people, I think particularly, they're kind of like, I don't want to commemorate war. Like, I don't want to have a whole day where I honor, like, they view it as a mournful thing, as it's like loss of life, and like war is not. And I think just regardless of where you come from on that spectrum, I think that Remembrance Day can still be important and should still be important, to say that, like, we don't ever want that cost to be paid again, you know, like we don't want to. But so when it comes to leaning into like celebrating stuff, whether you do it before or after, like keeping Remembrance Day is like, you know, a separate day, like a sacred day, 100%. Where you're able to reflect on, like, even especially as Christians, how our faith plays into the way that we look at the world around us. I think it's really poignant and meaningful.
Yeah, we just had an election, like we vote, right? Like different things like that come to mind this time of year, right? Yeah. And I hear you. I hear you 100%. And I find after Remembrance Day, it seems to be fair game on Christmas stuff, and I could pull out the garland and the trees and put on the Sufjan Stevens Christmas album and start living it up, right?
You like that album?
I do like that album.
I like it too.
Do you?
Yeah.
What's your favorite? Do you have a favorite song?
Oh, it's hard to say.
There's one on there called Star of Wonder. It's a good one. It's a beauty. Yeah.
It's a good one. Yeah. You know, I grew up with some of those old classics like Boney M's. You know,
it's my favorite. You saved my favorite.
I think we need to pump the brakes here. Okay. We're gonna throw people off. It's November 8th. Okay.
Focus on Monday. Remembrance Day's coming up.
That's right.
And we're going to get back to this.
We'll get back to Christmas stuff.
We're going to do like a Christmas music episode.
Yes.
A mini one.
Yes.
That's going to go 3 hours.
A mini Christmas music episode where it's just us listening to Paul McCartney's...
That's it.
What's that song
Wonderful
called?
Christmas Time.
Wonderful Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah. But just that the whole time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's how we're starting today, but we're going to move into In the Neighborhood here in a second. And you're going to chat with us a little bit about what went down at the retreat that you took the youth on. Ooh. And I actually really liked your themes. I saw some of your presentations on the pictures that you guys posted.
Nice.
And I like what you went through.
Thanks, bro.
Why don't you tell us about it? Let's look at In the Neighborhood.
In the Neighborhood.
In the Neighborhood.
Was the retreat awesome?
Yeah, we were outside of our neighborhood, but it was still our neighborhood.
Okay.
So we went to Living Waters Camp, and we love Living Waters Camp. It's a great camp, and it's our fellowships camp, which means like our church is part of a church fellowship, and that camp is also part of it. So we went out and stayed in their lodge, which was good because it was freezing cold.
That would have been cold to be in a non-heated cabins over
and
the
dorms up there. So there's cabins that are like different than the dorms, but the dorms up there are just plywood walls, man.
Yes.
Like
I've been in them.
That is it.
Yeah.
So I mean, we did a lot of retreats in there before they finished this new addition to the lodge, and like space heaters, blankets. Like, man, you're just fighting for your life. Yeah. One year we had snow in the morning. We woke up and we had done like a paint fight the night before with T-shirts. So everybody had colored T-shirts. They're out drying. Yeah. You pick them up and they're like cards, like they're just frozen. Anyway. We're happy to be nice and warm.
Yeah. Well, in the snow thing, I came out a couple of years ago. You had me come out and speak.
That's right.
And it was awesome.
Never again.
I had a great time. No, you're never inviting me back, right? Like after that, you're like, that is the end of that.
That was tough. No,
and it's not happening one more time. But I remember you guys played Christmas music on the Sunday.
That's right.
Is that still tradition?
We didn't this year because there was a great deal of chaos with the facilities that we were using. And we ended up breaking our meals out to another room. We didn't even have a speaker in there or anything. Which it was all good. We did that intentionally, but we didn't play the music. People talked about it though. They said there better be Christmas music on Saturday morning.
It's because one time there was snow, right? You woke up out to Snow on Sunday?
Yes. And so Ben Potter, former youth leader, would he would play Christmas music every year because of that. That guy's a tradition guy.
He is.
Like
he's
like, if we do something
with him,
let's do it all the time, every time.
Yep.
So he was always into the tradition you started as well.
Yeah.
Home Alone every Christmas.
Oh yes.
With the youth though.
Yeah.
So every year the youth would watch Home Alone. Now in recent
years,
years,
I let them pick. I would just slightly manipulate the choice. Right?
We didn't even let people pick. We said Home Alone 1 or 2.
Yeah.
So I guess we let them pick that.
Yes.
And so they pick 1 or 2.
That's a lot of choice.
But it's too much choice, to be honest.
Yeah.
But we kind of let that go because now the kids that viewed that as tradition aren't part of the youth group anymore.
Yeah.
So it's like
kind of like you're holding on too long and too strong, right?
You quit trying to make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this weekend we had a good time. This was 2 weekends ago now, where we chatted about what Jesus says.
Yes.
So the series was called Jesus Says.
Yeah.
And the whole goal for the weekend was really just to get our students to engage with the things that Jesus says about 3 different things. And the first is about us, about our struggles. First thing is about us. Second thing about our struggles. And then the third thing was about our actions.
Nice.
And so it went, Jesus says you matter.
Mm-hmm.
And under you matter, we talked about how Jesus does give, he tells us that we're children of God when we follow him, right?
Yeah.
And he gives us this access to the Father in an unprecedented shifting of our view.
Yes.
For his time, it was completely radical to call God Dad.
Yes.
And in familiar terms like dad, so Abba would be the word that we would read in the scripture.
Yeah.
And talking about how this is very important and how if we actually sit down and think that we're children of Creator God and that we're not just that, but Romans says that we're heirs, like we actually get to partake in what this king, who is the king over every ruler and prime minister and president and dictator, and we are heirs to that. It changes completely who we think we are. So we kind of use the parable that he uses at the very end of the Sermon on the Mount. Do you know what he uses at the very end of the Sermon on the Mount?
The last one? Like the last part of that? The wise and the foolish builders?
That's right, yeah. So the person who follows what Jesus says, so it's the end of the sermon where he says, here's what I'm doing, here's how you can be part of it. Yeah. And at the very end, he says, there's a little warning saying, if you don't do what I'm saying, I'm going to tell you that I don't even know you, which we talked about a little bit last week. Yeah. But then at the end, he says, the person who follows what I say is like a person who builds on a rock foundation. And the person who hears what I say and doesn't listen to it, doesn't heed it, it's like building your life on sand. And so when the storms of life come, again, not if, but when the storms of life come, like a house built on sand gets washed away, and a house that's built on a firm rock holds solid. So he's giving us a promise to say that, hey, what I say matters, and if you hear it and you do it, like you're going to have a foundation. Yes. And so we leaned into that and talked about how you matter. Yeah. And the fact that Jesus calls us God's children, and later we see Paul reiterate that a lot. Yeah. And if we actually build our lives on that, like we're building on something solid, that we are, that you matter, that you're a child of God.
I love that. I think that's so good and so meaningful for all of us to hear. We were at that retreat we talked about last episode, and the speaker out there, I remember one of the things that he continued and Caitlin also brought out as well, was this idea that before you're anything, you are a son, you're a daughter. That's right. And you have a father, right?
So good.
And just to live there and live out of that, because that's where you live properly. The reason why I for sure knew that verse you were talking about at the end of Matthew chapter 7 was because that's actually the first thing I ever preached on. Ever.
Really?
Yeah. My first sermon.
Nice.
I called it the only true foundation.
Nice.
And so just you remember those kind of things, sort of, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Pastor John was the pastor at the Lawson Heights Pentecostal Assembly at the time. Yeah. And had me speak on a Wednesday night service. They used to have a Wednesday night service. And I just picked that one. So, but no, that's great teaching. And you matter. Like if you that's something foundational to live this whole thing out. You have to know it.
Big time. Absolutely.
So.
Yeah, so we're trying to get those kids to understand. We use a little illustration of a balancing ball and stuff, and you need to be on something more solid. And anyway, and that led into Jesus says your struggles matter. And so we're talking more about how leaning into parts where Jesus says, like, he guarantees that there will be hardship in life, but that he'll be there with us.
Yeah.
That he knows and he sees. And so we used some scripture like Jesus talking about how his yoke is easy, his burden is light.
Yeah.
And so, we tried to challenge the teenagers to think a little bit about, hey, like, there's nothing in Christian faith that gives you a get out of struggles free card.
Mm-hmm.
There's no promises in there that life gets easy and that you don't have questions and struggle. There's actually promises that like you will continue to struggle, if not more. But the difference is that if you're building on that foundation, like he's with you and he's got you and he's holding you still.
Yeah.
And so, finding rest, we talked about that a lot, and we just gave the students an opportunity to like look for some rest if they're needing it. And, moving from understanding your identity into, okay, now that if you really work on that and you really believe that, then you're able to move into like beyond your identity. Jesus actually just cares about how you're doing, like your circumstances, your situations.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I think that went pretty okay over with the students, and it's always good to challenge young people to consider this because whether you think it's just now or it was worse when you were a kid or it's worse now or whatever, just being a teenager, like you're figuring a lot of stuff out.
For sure.
So you got to be able to like acknowledge like what does God actually think about me and about my situations.
And where is he in all this? Yeah. I like it. It's really good.
So then the last thing that we talked about was Jesus says your actions matter. And this was kind of more of a charge to say, like, if you're on the firm foundation and you know that Jesus cares for you and you're living in this and you're pursuing it and day after day you're continuing to look into that and go deeper, then you have something to offer. Like you can help somebody up. And we use that a balance ball illustration again, and we had somebody try to stand on the balancing ball and try to help somebody else up onto the balancing ball, and like it was really awkward and funny and stuff. People falling and
That's
stuff.
That's good though. Yeah.
But then we said, when you're on building your life on something that shifts like sand, something that's like the themes of the day or the what's popular at the time, or when you're building your life on that stuff, you're not really in a position to offer other people stability because you're yourself, like you're not stable.
Yeah.
And so
good point. Yeah.
Coming from the perspective of building on the firm foundation because you know who you are, because Jesus cares about what you're going through, then you can actually go to other people and you say, hey, come here and like, let me help you up. And this is a solid place. Let me show you. And you'll be secure here too.
Yeah.
And so the challenge leaving the weekend was really like, hey, guys, there's people in your schools, there's people in even in your families, on your street, in your clubs, in your sports team that like they need what you have to offer. Mm-hmm. So like you don't actually get the option when you understand who you are and how much Jesus cares for you. You don't really get the option to just be a jerk that doesn't care about people. Mm-hmm. Like there's a bigger obligation now, right? And so that was an interesting challenge to
I like it,
to work through, and the teenagers are just amazing at leaning into it and like embracing it.
Well, that's good. I like the pattern you set out too, because it always starts with what God does for us, and then what God does with us, and then what God kind of sends us, right? Mm-hmm. But you have to get the first part right. It's like I alluded to a verse a couple weeks ago about the specks and the plank in your own eye, right?
Yep.
Like, and you could see the specks all day. Like if we want, we could just look at specks all day long, right?
Yep.
Until we recognize our own plank in our own eye and deal with that first. We're not going to be able to help anyone else, right?
Yeah.
And so you have to know you're loved. You have to know who you are in Christ, right? Mm-hmm. You have to know that even in the mess of life that he's with you and that he walks with you, right?
Yeah.
But your actions do matter.
Yeah.
I love it. You could have probably gone on this series for a long time, eh?
Well, there's so much to talk about. Yeah, I really challenged myself where it's like I can only make one point each time I talk. And it kind of worked because I was like, there's more to talk about, but we'll do follow-up conversations and stuff. But
that's good.
Yeah. So it was a good weekend, and so thankful for, our youth team, our youth leader team. They're just like absolutely amazing. Each one of them are just like servants and willing to do what needs to be done and pray with students, lead games, hang out.
Awesome.
It was a really good weekend.
You do have an awesome team. They're
beautiful.
I guess I had even from a couple of years ago being there, which I'm never coming back apparently.
Yeah.
So.
Well, only because you said you never would. So
it's on me now, right? I put my hands up and was like, that's the last time I'm doing that in my life.
Done.
Right? No, that's awesome. I'm so glad you guys had a good weekend, and it's cool to hear what's happening in the neighborhood from your perspective. And we'll keep rolling ahead. I think we're gonna keep this episode mini.
Yeah.
So we're gonna ask you out there. How about you?
How about you?
We're going to ask you Remembrance Day. Do you attend a service? What's your experience been with Remembrance Day? What are some thoughts you have maybe about that? We have another season approaching kind of right after Christmas. So, maybe you're one of these people who has your tree up. I hope we didn't offend you, okay? Yeah. It's all good if you did, okay?
But if we did offend you, engagement's still positive. You can rage at us in a comment.
Exactly.
It still helps.
Let us know. Yeah. And just what Ethan talked about here, about what Christ has said, and any comments you have on any of this stuff, send them our way. We'd like to engage and we'd like to hear from you. So, yeah. You all good? I'm hungry.
Dude, should we go eat? I'm so good, but I'm so hungry.
I'm hungry too.
You want to eat together?
We should eat together.
Aw.
I say...
Ashley, you in?
You in?
Yeah.
Go to Earl's?
In. Yeah.
Okay.
Earl's it is.
Sounds good. See you next time.
Toodaloo.
Unedited is a ministry expression of the Neighbourhood Church. Hosted by Ethan Andrews and Jordan McClellan. Produced by Ashley Drayton. Voiceover by me, M. Curry. Watch us on Instagram, YouTube, or Facebook. Or listen on Spotify or Apple Podcast. Thanks for listening.